So there are a couple different man pages with the same, same number or same name rather. Um, different section numbers, of course, but same name. There's even this password IO was it IOSSL. Um, so that's a whole other matter, but that's more of an API level thing. So if we use the man dash uppercase K, that's going to search for that term within the man pages. So it's going to look, do a text search through every man page and return any man pages that happen to have that text inside. So it goes beyond just the title and description. So they mentioned something else here, and this is not uncommon with certain systems in Linux. Um, so in order for this search capability to work, um, so there's an index that has to be generated. So what is an index? It's just basically a list or a database of all of this content. So when you do a man dash uppercase K, ordinarily that could take a little bit of time for that command to run because it's got to search through all of the man pages, and there may be thousands of them to return back um, what man pages have that string. Um, so what Linux does, instead of going out and searching through all of those as you run the command, it's going to create an index or database of this information, which can be searched a whole lot faster. So this DB cache update service, or I'm sorry, the man DB cache update service, is going to go through and it's going to update that database on a regular basis. So just know that that exists. Um, also, know that if you, for instance, install a piece of software, so we just DNF installed, again, I'm gonna pick on Python, for instance. We just installed Python. Really, Python should already be there, but for argument's sake, we just installed Python. Um, if we turn around and we do a man dash capital K and we search for Python, we may not return the man pages we expect to see. Why? Because this mandb cache update command has not run. So this is going to run automatically. Um, it says it should run when it's updating packages. It may not. This is going to run automatically from time to time, though. Um, it may mess up when it's installing packages, may mess up when you're uninstalling packages, it may mess up. I believe this also runs on a regular basis. Every so as so many days or whatever it'll run this. So what I'm getting at here is there may be a period of time where you go to search for something that you know should be there and it's not showing up because this cache is out of date. Any question about man pages? So again, if you happen to go sit for the Linux exam, just note that this is one of those things that um, you're going to want to know. Um, it's a um, this could be the your lifesaver. uh, there in that exam, it costs money to sit for that exam. I think it's like $300, $400, something along those lines. So it's not exactly cheap to go sit for that thing. You don't want to get in the middle of that exam and get lost and go, oh no, I don't, what's that command? You got some sort of mind blip. You've only typed that command 50 times in the past week, but suddenly you're sitting there going, okay, I'm lost. The man system may just be that lifeline that you need to get through. Which, speaking of the Red Hat exam, that is a kind of a wicked, nasty exam. Um, it's all hands on. It's not like multiple choice or anything like that, like a lot of these, certification type exams are. Um, when it comes to the Red Hat exam, it is purely hands on. So you sit down in front of a machine that has Red Hat on it, and you have to actually do things. It's kind of like a one big lab. However, Red Hat is just pure evil. And one of the very first things you've got to do, I think the very first thing you have to do, is you're sitting in front of a console and you don't know what the root password is. You have to actually hack into the thing and reset the root password. Um, Now that's not the most horrible thing to do. It's takes just a few minutes. There's a set of commands you type to make that happen, but you have to know how to do that. If you don't know how to do that, you can't do the entire rest of the exam. And there are other parts of the exam that build upon each other like that. So getting stuck in one spot of the exam can basically mean failing the exam. It doesn't just mean getting that one part wrong. So that's important. When it comes to the man pages, that is one thing that you do have access to in that exam. So text files and such. Um, so text files are incredibly important in Linux. As I've mentioned before, nearly all of the configuration in Linux is done via text files. So unlike Windows where we have a registry, on Linux we have thousands upon thousands of text files. Um, so those text files might contain configuration settings, they might contain log information. Um, there's just all kinds of uh, various files that we've got on the system that contain text. So anyway, we're going to start out by talking about our standard input, standard output, and standard error. Um, these seem kind of weird. They seem kind of foreign. If you're coming from a Windows background, believe it or not, these exist on Windows as well. You just don't ever see them. They're kind of buried underneath. Um, Programmers do see them. When you're writing software on Windows, you most certainly use the standard input, standard output, and standard error capability of programs on Windows. But in the Linux world, we use this an awful lot. So what are these things? Basically, Linux was designed to have a bunch of little applications do one thing and do it well. So, excuse me. So basically, instead of creating these um, monstrous apps that are the end all be all of applications and do just anything and everything all at once. And no, Linux broke things down into its component parts. And this was a design decision going way back when, and this came out of AT&T Unix. So rather than doing a whole bunch of things, we break things into their component parts, we make them more modular, and we allow different things to be put together in a chain. So that's what standard input and standard output are all about. Every um, application that we run from the command line in Linux has a standard input and standard output capability. So standard input allows us to pass information into the command. Um, so of course we're used to looking at this, and on a command line we can type in the command, and then we can give it options, and we can give it whatever input we want on the command line. But aside from just the input that we give it, the options and the the parameters that we provide to it on the command line, we can also provide information from another program, from another application. So we might run one application that generates an output, and that output goes straight into the input of another command or application. And we can chain them together like that. So, the out from one goes into the end of the other, and on down the line until we get the final result that we're looking for. So, there are different ways of taking output from an application. By default, we're used to typing in a command, and the output just gets printed to the screen. So in many cases, that information printed to the screen is the standard output. This is just what was dumped out. um, in some cases, an application may dump one set of information out to the screen and provide another set of information in another output form. Um, some applications will take